Hello everybody, Sam from Road Trail Run. Today we're going to talk about Saucony's two light stability trainers, both light in weight and light in sort of the amount of stability they provide. First, we have the Guide 15, which is out now, $140. And we have the Tempus coming end of June for $160. So they are both in that category of light stability. The Guide clearly is a more supportive shoe and a heavier shoe than the Tempus. First, before we get into stats, let's talk about how they achieve their stability. So the Guide uses a kind of semicircular frame here. It's not super obtrusive. I'm going to be taking them both out for an AB run, one on each foot. That's its primary element of support, with a coverage of rubber on the medial side, whereas our Tempus does not use any plastic pieces. It has actually PWRRUN foam, same as over in the Guide, actually slightly softer in a frame. You can see the frame here with PWRRUN PB, their super light energetic foam, as in the Speed front and back, with a longer PWRRUN PB piece on the lateral side for landing. In terms of its outsole, it differs quite a bit in the sense that instead of the medial firm and thick rubber we have over here, we have sort of a platform of just regular PWRRUN, and they actually put a little piece of rubber on the lateral side, a little bit unusual. You can also see there's more of a guidance line approach in the Tempus, whereas over here we have it broken up, if you will, a bit more. Now let's talk a bit about the differences in uppers here. Fairly similar mesh. Our mesh here in the Tempus is a little denser. The only real ventilation holes are up front. It's a little lighter mesh, whereas over in the Guide we have a more kind of open mesh. You can see the ventilation through there. When you're talking about a stability or a support shoe, and even the Ride 15 has these A straps which extend down towards the midsole on both sides, whereas our lighter Tempus has a single external overlay strap. In terms of the rest of the upper, well, you can see our Guide is a little more plush, a little bit more padded. All of this adds a bit to the weight, whereas over here we've got kind of a less padded, more performance-oriented approach. In terms of the tongues, they both have gusset tongues. Here, the tongue is a little bit less padded, a little thinner in the Tempus. You can see the gusset over here, but so they both have that. Let's talk Sockliners. In the Guide, we have PWRRUN Plus, so that TPU material, the beaded TPU that you see in shoes like the Triumph. So I think this kind of softer, bouncier insole takes the kind of a little bit of the bite off of the PWRRUN, which is not, not ridiculously firm, but it kind of gives you a responsive layer. Whereas Saucony did something different in the Tempus, I think smart too. This looks like an EVA, so a bit denser, and that also I think helps because you've got all that softer PWRRUN PB through the whole center of the shoe and at the heels and at the front, to kind of give it a bit more stable platform. Both excellent Sockliners in terms of what was chosen for the shoes. In terms of fit, they've both been true to size, a little bit more accommodating here than here. I'm going to take them out on my AB run and give you more comments. So when we get to the stats, though, things get really interesting, because over here we have the combination of the considerably lighter PWRRUN PD, very responsive, lively foam, which is lighter. So we come in my sample here, men's US 8.5 at 8.8 ounces, or 250 grams, which is 0.6 ounces, 17 grams lighter than the Guide, which is all Power Run. There's no Power Run PB in the mix. In terms of stack height, well, our Tempus takes the prize there too, because it comes in at a stack height of 36.5 millimeter heel and 28.5 millimeter forefoot, whereas over here with the Guide 15 we have a stack height of 35.27, so that's 1.5 millimeters less stack height than our Tempus. So the Guide 15 is 8 millimeter drop and the Tempus 6 millimeter drop. So you've got some pretty clear choices here in terms of weight, foam types. There's no question the Guide 15 is a little bit more supportive, a little bit more pronation control oriented, whereas our Tempus here, really an all new shoe, is kind of more performance. All of our neutral testers, and we're all neutral, all 30 of us rarely get into stability shoes, have been enjoying this. We've got an initial review, video review on the channel here. And we'll have the multi-tester review real soon. So just to give you a bit more kind of insights into how it's put together here, the Tempus. So we have the frame of Power Run here, which extends down under the forefoot. It kind of comes out on both sides a little bit as a bit of a frame on the more on the medial side, you can see here, but then you can see the exposed beads of Power Run PB running all the way through. So the center core, if you will, and the heel, you can see it's longer, more extensive, so you have a softer rebounding landing. And then on the medial side, you see the Power Run PB ends sooner, with this vertical sidewall really providing most of the support. So I'm going to take them both out right now for an AB run here in New Hampshire. It's cold. I was up on Mount Washington yesterday running that race. I often like to use, as a neutral runner, a stability type shoe as sort of my recovery type shoes. You know, I appreciate not having to think too much about it. These are not heavy support type shoes. They're really sort of a new generation, if you will. Both of them really, but more so the Tempus. So let's take them out and see how they run. Okay, the sea is calm. The Rosa rugosas here are just beautiful. This is their season. Let's talk some more color about the fit between our Guide 15 and our Tempus. So the Guide 15, while it has that plusher collar, is clearly more supportive at midfoot, both from the upper, from the straps, and from the midsole, of course, with the plastic piece. Whereas our Tempus is certainly plenty supportive from its single external strap, but kind of more comfortable, easier going, a little bit less arch pressure than I'm feeling here, but still mighty fine. In terms of toe box, is very similar. I would almost give the width lean to the Tempus, but the softness of the mesh here is a bit softer. I do think the Tempus, because it's a bit denser maybe, holds above the toes a little higher, feeling that, but they're both very similar. Lace up easy on both. I don't see any real advantage to the either upper. So I'm going to keep going, true to size both. Tunnel of Roses. Let's talk ride here. So I've run a bunch in both. Today's AB, so you really pick up on the differences. So the Tempus clearly is softer and has kind of a smoother, longer kind of flow. You can see here's its flexibility compared to our Guide. Stiffer, not much stiffer, but really the stiffness comes from the flex point here being a little further back because of the plastic plate. The Guide is snappier, a little more responsive, a little firmer. You feel a little more kind of snappier toe off. What really happens, I think, I said this in my earlier review, is you kind of roll off the back, off the the front, roll off the front of the the guidance arc here to kind of a snappier, quicker toe off, whereas over here it's more mellow, but boy, is it still plenty bouncy because of our PWRRUN PB. You can see the heel through the forefoot and on both sides here, so you really get kind of a more energetic feeling ride, if a bit less kind of responsive. In terms of the stability elements here, clearly the rear of the guide, there's more stability. The plastic plate, the firmer PWRRUN, and this is all PWRRUN, whereas over here we have the combination. And to my pressing, even the PWRRUN frame is softer than what we have here. It's not an over firm shoe. This is plenty of good stable cushion. So we got our plastic frame, we've got our firmer PWRRUN, we've also got the extra medial outsole rubber, whereas here we have more of a platform. So this is clearly a more stable shoe. The question becomes, do you really need it? How much do you really need? Well, it all depends on you and your style. For a neutral runner, the Tempus is a superb shoe, even though it's, quote, has some stability. Sort of reminds, if you will, of a beefed up Kinvara with more stack. So it's softer, it's energetic, it's kind of smoother flowing than our snappier, kind of more supportive guide here. I like them both, but clearly for my preference as being more neutral, I would lean towards the Tempus as kind of a more friendly all-around neutral trainer for a neutral runner and those that need light support. You feel really well guided by the frame, even though you got that soft foam in the middle, so you've kind of linear feel, whereas here you have more a kind of a snappier flex from the plate off the front after that stable landing. Both will work for neutral runners, but this would be the one I would focus on if you really need the pronation control, and both are well sub 10 ounces, which is great. Okay, back from the run. So what would I like to see changed here for my personal preferences? Well, I'd like to see maybe a little bit more PWRRUN and a little less PB in the forefoot to give the Tempus a little more snap. As you may recall, it's all PWRRUN PB through the whole center of the midsole with the wraparound in here. So somehow I'd like to see touch more snap out of this shoe. In terms of the stability element as a neutral runner, I absolutely really didn't notice. Just a touch, sort of reminding me of the old Kinvaras. And we have relatively soft foam here. Now over to our guide 15. Well, the rear of the shoe is super stable. The plastic element, when you run them side by side, gets more notice, that's for sure. For my preferences, I'd like to see it toned down a little bit. We've got lots of support from the upper. We've got lots of firmer than in the Tempus PWRRUN, and maybe by softening the PWRRUN that might help, but you definitely have a lot of arch support, a lot of pronation support, not ridiculous amounts, but I'm talking comparatively speaking. So if you really do need the pronation control, this is a really fine option. I'd also like to see, and this may be influenced a bit by the plastic arc there, is I'd like to see a bit more flex. You see, it's pretty stiff. It hits the frame right about there, and plus we have that extra big thick piece of outsole rubber here. I'd like to see a little more flex and roll, whereas over here we have a much more, or considerably more flexible shoe with a nice different kind of feel, more of a roll forward, whereas here you feel the support and then you kind of pop down off the plastic element. I'd like to see that maybe it's the outsole, maybe reduced a little bit, give me a little more flow. But that's for me, and I'm a neutral runner. Whereas over here, this is really just a fine all-around ride for me. And I think for folks who need a bit of pronation control, but don't want all the plastic and so on and so forth. So it's very, in a lot of ways, similar to the Ride 15, which is all power run, softer kind of power run. But you do have those elements, the landing elements of the PB, the central core, so you have a more bouncy feel, a little more energetic feel to it. So we have our full multi-tester review of the Guide 15 up on Road Trail Run Now. We have an initial video review of the Tempus with our multi-tester review real soon, if not already. Thank you very much for watching. So 160 for the Tempus, available the end of June. 140 for the Guide, available now. Thank you very much for watching Road Trail Run. Have a great run.